Social loafing is an interesting phenomenon, and the idea is that some people put in less effort when they're being judged as a part of a group, even if no one actually wants to do a bad job. We all remember these school or university projects where 5 or even more people were involved in one project, and it often felt like some people were putting in less effort but still getting the same marks or credits as the rest of the team, which kind of felt unfair for us. Sometimes we, or even I, had a feeling that if I were the only one in that project, I could have performed much better. It can be really frustrating to be in this situation when you're in a team, but that's what the phenomenon is about. It simply says people in a group setting usually tend to put less effort. According to psychology, social loafing happens when there's an unclear in responsibilities for every person, so the focus kind of shifts from an individual performance to a group performance. But this phenomenon does not only happen in programming or for programmers. In fact, it happens in every type of a team, even in sports teams. Social loafing in a school project is one thing, but how about a workplace? How can you empower your team to get their best work done as a part of a group? Max Ringelmann first described the social loafing phenomenon in 1913. A French agricultural engineer by trade, Ringelmann discovered social loafing by asking a number of people to tug on a rope. He measured that individuals put more effort when they tagged individually than when they pulled as a group. But teamwork and groups are not the real culprit of this phenomenon. What's the real culprit? It's simply a lack of clarity. When knowledge workers don't have clarity into the work that they're doing and don't know how their individual contribution actually affects the company mission, they underperform. So if social loafing is mostly present when the work is unclear, how do you provide this clarity? So the first thing you can do is to identify who is doing what and by when. Simply go through every task in your project and see, is there more than owner for a specific task? Without a clear single owner for a specific task in a project, people simply get confused and don't know who's responsible for what or who's primarily responsible for each task. For example, imagine your team of 3 is working on refactoring the old code. Without clearly defined responsibilities for each team member, you can end up mob programming, which is a bigger version of pair programming where there's only 2 people on tasks that otherwise wouldn't need 2 people. Or one team member is simply idling and doing the work that has no impact. Second, coordinate your work from one place. This simply means keeping track of your work properly. Be it a Kanban board, a Trello board, simple post-its on a board, or even a to-do list, people will not be able to perform on their best level and get this dopamine rush when they check off the tasks that they have accomplished. Third, reduce the work about work, meaning try to minimize the time when you're preparing to do the actual work and try to automate it. Here's an example. The same team of 3 needs to build a number of microservices on the backend that's going to serve the client. Let's say we have already covered the first and second points and every member has a clear responsibilities on a Trello board. But there's no well-defined process with best practices for creating microservices from scratch. So it's going to end up being messy or giving you a headache in a long term or even in the short term. Fourth, connect your daily work to company objectives. Without a clear understanding of how your individual works specifically relates to companies' OKRs or some global objectives, it can be really frustrating to prioritize all of your work, and you're going to feel like you're simply spinning the wheels. But this type of clarity can be quite hard to achieve actually. Only 26% of knowledge workers have a very clear understanding of how their individual work is related to their company mission. To bridge this gap, simply make sure that every individual in your team knows exactly how their work is bubbled up to the company objectives. When they understand which tasks are critical, they can themselves kind of prioritize things and navigate through different phases of the project. Connecting your daily work to company objectives can also help your team go in the same direction. So the problem usually is not social loafing, as you can see. It's simply a problem of clarity. But if your team is underperforming, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from social loafing. It can simply be that your team is simply struggling with the tasks. So it's definitely worth figuring out what's impacting this performance and their low motivation first. If you found this video useful, and I hope you actually learned something new today, then make sure you subscribe and check out this video where I talk about how you can be a better leader at your workplace. I will see you in the next video.